Welcome back to Otaku Daikun. Dai-chan here, and you're watching the Waifu Files, a series where we discover and celebrate various anime and games through their lovely ladies. We've got a crazy journey ahead of us, as I'll be covering the waifu from Danmachi, otherwise called Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? This epic fantasy is absolutely loaded with quality waifu, many of whom qualify as my certified favorites. Currently, the series is ongoing, having just finished its 5th season. For the sake of my sanity, we'll only focus on characters from the anime. I won't be covering spin-offs, or characters currently exclusive to the manga or light novels. This includes the browser game Aurario Rhapsidia and the mobile game Memoria Freeze. Sorry about that, but we already have plenty of waifu for a single video. You'll be drowning in beauty here, enough to make even Zeus blush. Thus, without further ado, let's dive into some waifu. Danmachi takes place in a world where gods from various mythologies descend from heaven, recruiting the land's mortals as their children. Each god then has a faction, or familia, of warriors they oversee. Why? Because the city of Aurario plays host to a massive dungeon, filled with all kinds of treasures and ferocious monsters. Familias are needed to venture into the dungeon and explore as deep as they can. Our waifu, then, are either these gods, their children, or residents of the dungeon itself. I've done my best to categorize them by faction, but bear in mind that it's normal for children to change factions or associate with more than one. Danmachi's protagonist is Belle Crenelle, a rookie adventurer who wants to earn fame as a great dungeon explorer, but starts off all on his own. No god nor mortal agency will give him the time of day or a place to belong. That's when our first waifu, Hestia, welcomes him into her familia. Ironically, this goddess of hearth, home, and family has struggled to form her own familia ever since descending from heaven. As its sole member, Belle does his best to get stronger for Hestia. Fittingly, he gifted her the bell-shaped ornaments in her hair. In general, Hestia is known best for her kindness. She is quick to befriend others without prejudice, and she even gave up her seat as one of Olympus's 12 main gods in order to prevent conflict. As such, her animosity is reserved exclusively for those who threaten Belle and her bond with him. Even though she's a virgin goddess, it's clear that Hestia wants to jump his bones. Too bad he's so naive that he'll never take her up on the offer. At first, Hestia and Belle struggle to get by, living out of an abandoned chapel. As Belle ventures into the dungeon, she works the streets. In a wholesome way, I swear. She takes odd jobs, like running a food stand. It doesn't make much, but it does provide for them. This is incredibly humble for a goddess, but Hestia embraces this life for the chance to embrace Belle. You wouldn't know it up front, but she's actually very powerful, a former guardian of the sacred flame in heaven. In the lower world, she can wield protective fire when given a suitable altar. It can purify even the strongest of charms, spanning the entire city with the right preparations. Most of the time, though, she's a pacifist. Little by little, she supports Belle as he gains experience, even though it puts him in constant danger. The one thing he wants, the one thing he's destined for, is the one thing she reluctantly aids. To upgrade Belle's gear, Hestia puts herself in debt of Hephaestus, goddess of the forge. For as much as she wants to protect Belle directly, she needs help, and he needs a party. Hestia is jealous of Belle's attention and affection toward Ais Wallenstein, a much stronger adventurer who saves him from a rampaging minotaur. Hestia can tell that Belle loves Ais, and is hesitant to reveal it's a source of his strength. His skill, Liari's Freeze, helps him grow faster the more enamored he is. Said growth skyrocketed upon meeting Ais. Despite this, Hestia is willing to put her envy aside so that Belle can train under his idol. Along with this, she welcomes trustworthy allies into her familia, even though it means she can no longer monopolize her beloved. As a more established goddess, she can provide Belle greater opportunities, enriching their lives overall. Nevertheless, if she hadn't seen potential in the young man from the start, Belle would never have achieved his dream. Some people become familia members from birth. Such is the case for Liliruca Arde, or Lily for short. Since her parents belonged to the Soma familia, she did too by default. I assure you, though, there was no real family present. Rather than love their child, Lily's parents treated her merely as a tool to make money. They were eventually killed in the dungeon, and the Familia only continued her harsh treatment. Soma, the Hindu god of the moon and drink, was an irresponsible god who isolated himself to brew wine. This left his Familia to govern themselves, leading to cruelty and corruption. Initially, Lily tried and failed to make it as an adventurer. Instead, she settled on being a supporter who accompanies other adventurers. While this is a valuable role, she had terrible luck forming parties, always getting stuck with douchebags who looked down on her. This led to her quitting the dungeon entirely, fleeing from the Soma Familia. Fortunately, she found an old couple who took her in. She worked at their shop and found some momentary happiness. Refusing this, though, the Soma Familia found her, trashed the store, and forced her back into servitude. Her harsh situation has made Lily hate adventurers, and so she thrives off stealing from them. Poor Belle, naive to a fault, falls prey to Lily's deception and nearly dies when she abandons him during battle. Thankfully, she begins to regret her actions, acknowledging how Belle treats her as an equal. She's been robbing the wrong person for the wrong people, and her servitude toward her Familia is met with betrayal. To escape a monster infestation, they toss Lily into the pack as a diversion. In spite of how she treated Belle, he nonetheless comes to her rescue, not only freeing her from her abusers, but also pacifying her hatred. Her resentment toward adventurers transforms into a love for Belle, and she becomes his permanent supporter. This involves carrying a huge-ass bag of supplies, including magical items that can be used to take out stragglers. Lily also has a crossbow for thinning out monster hordes. Biologically, she's considered a Palom, of a short race with enhanced eyesight. Her magic skill, Cinderella, allows her to transform into creatures of the same size. This mimicry made it easy to steal from adventurers, and then hide by disguising as someone else. To a lesser extent, she can even appear as a different race, with wolf-like ears and a tail, though her design also suggests a squirrel theme. While her feelings aren't exactly reciprocated, Lily adores Belle and winds up competing against Hestia for his affection. They may be at each other's throats, but luckily they work in tandem to keep Belle safe. In fact, she winds up begging Soma to let her convert to Hestia's Familia. To prove her resolve, she drinks Soma's divine wine and resists its effects. Seeing her plight makes him ashamed of his neglect, and he strives to become a better god. Nonetheless, he still allows her to make the switch. Under Hestia, Lily becomes the team's brain, as it were. She has a good eye for the Familia's finances and tends to play things on the safer side. This is because, in a previous life, Lily was known as Fianna, captain of the Fianna Knights, who fought to their end during ancient times. As such, she inherits a knack for strategy, and later becomes a skilled commander for all the heroes in Arario. Overall, Lily demonstrates how we should never sell someone short. A person's strength may not seem immediately apparent, and treating them poorly will only serve to limit their potential. Let us take this moment to appreciate the metric butt-ton of nameless NPC waifu this show bombards us with. So many of them could qualify as main characters, and it's no wonder Hestia and Lily don't want any of these babes joining their Familia. Competition for Belle's heart is already stiff enough from all the waifu we're about to cover. This would be one of the best anime worlds to actually live in, if only its monsters weren't so fucking brutal. The dungeon claims countless lives, and while that includes a fair balance of men and women, I hate seeing waifu die. We die all the time in video games, but for them, it's real. Sadly, if you find a cute waifu who's not important enough to have a name, there's a chance she'll get mauled. Regardless, they deserve to be known. There are even certain goddesses that, at least in the anime, go completely unnamed. Both in heaven and the lower world, Hestia shares a friendly rivalry with Loki, a devious god in Norse mythology who appears in Danmachi as a playful tomboy. She also has a fox-like appeal and enjoys her nickname Trickster. Perhaps even more, she enjoys a good drink and is a huge fan of Soma's wine. She enjoys its intoxicating allure so much that she once proposed to Soma, only to be rejected. Well, that's his loss, considering she's very cute and has an awesome outfit. On occasion, Loki's tomboy nature has her dressing in men's clothes, like fancy suits. She's handsome in that regard, but I want her to be the waifu. To an extent, it seems she wants to be too, but suffers from a fatal case of flat justice. Obviously, she's no Hestia, but washboards have their own appeal. Nonetheless, that doesn't stop her from wanting a larger chest, and it certainly doesn't stop her from coveting other people's melons. She loves to grope women in her familia, even though it always ends in rejection. Her sapphic obsession is undeniable and totally relatable. All joking aside, Loki's familia is one of the strongest in Orario. It has a ton of children with a strict and reliable chain of command. Updating their status can be a chore due to the sheer volume of adventurers under her care. When she's not drunk or lost in perversion, she's actually very astute and analytical regarding strategy and politics. Her eyes may be closed half the time, but it's clear she can see the truth of things just fine. I appreciate how she has both a serious and silly side. For as much as I like her, though, I like her familia even more. Arguably, the most prized member of the Loki familia is Ais Wallenstein. Among Orario's top adventurers, she is known as the Sword Princess, a stoic warrior focused solely on her pursuit of strength. While she is strong, she doesn't consider herself a hero because she's got an ulterior motive for getting stronger. Ais was born to her beautiful mother Arya and loyal father Albert. Arya was described as a kind wind that brought happiness with her wherever she went. Albert, in turn, adored his family and hoped Ais would grow up to find her own hero. Their peaceful life was torn asunder when a ferocious black dragon escaped the dungeon. It annihilated the familias of Hera and Zeus before confronting Albert in battle. He and Arya fought against the black dragon, managing to put out one of its eyes. Tragically, Albert gave his life for this feat, and while Arya may still be alive, her fate remains a mystery. Needless to say, Ais has been traumatized by the one-eyed black dragon, and her goal in life is to finally slay it and rescue her mother. Doing so is considered one of the world's 3 great quests, meaning that Ais has a tough road ahead of her. Thankfully, as the daughter of a legendary swordsman, she hopes to emulate and transcend Albert's techniques. To grow stronger, she joined the Loki familia when she was 7 years old. She was one of the fastest adventurers to level up, but her single-minded obsession had its downsides. Ais's desire for revenge has her hating monsters to an extreme degree. She was aggressive, never caring for her own well-being, and was disrespectful to her superiors. Manners weren't a concern, not with leveling up at the forefront of her mind. The rest of her familia saw her as an emotionless doll. One time, Ais's rudeness toward her superior landed her in deep water, literally, as she was punished by being tied to a chunk of adamantite and forced to stay afloat. Ever since, Ais has been unable to swim, only ever approaching water shallow enough to stand in. At least that includes bathing. Having ignored her emotions and social cues, Ais is quite naive about the world around her. She's gullible enough to believe that the skimpy outfits Loki gives her constitute his battle armor. She also shouts the names of her wind techniques, believing it makes them more powerful. Luckily, years with her familia have broadened her horizons. She learns the value of proper rest, as well as the importance of mental fortitude to complement her physical abilities. The cheerful nature of her companions helps her develop a sense of compassion and self-fulfillment. Perhaps this is what attracts her so much to Bel. Just as she inspires him to be stronger, she envies his determination to become a hero. Unlike her, Bel is selfless, charging into danger to save people, no matter how weak he is. Rather than shame him for this weakness, she admires how he has the conviction she herself needs. In that regard, the two make a fantastic pair, each compensating for and strengthening each other's faults. While Ais's naivete extends to romance, it's clear she cares deeply for Bel. Unfortunately, her attempts to appeal to him are met with tremendous embarrassment. Bel struggles to share the same space with his savior and idol, as he's hypersensitive to her beauty. As such, the two only have brief moments together, compared to the other girls anyway. Despite the distance, being apart never seems to lessen their bond. If anything, they think of each other as motivation when separated. Sadly though, being members of different familia occasionally puts them at odds. Following orders, Ais crosses blades with Belle, but when all is said and done, she prefers when they're allies. That said, they have some impressive bouts against each other. As you'll see later, Belle tests her resolve, forcing her to confront her own false preconceptions. Her blind hatred of monsters is called into question when Belle protects a friendly one. She starts to wonder if her quest for revenge is, in fact, misplaced. In the end, she learns through Belle that creatures must be judged on merit. Humans and other races can be monsters just as much as the dungeon's beasts. It's fair to say that Belle saves her just as she saved him. Overall, Ais is a deceivingly profound character. The blank expression on her face hides a torrent of unspoken emotions. This makes the few expressions she does make all the more adorable. At times, her appeal overlaps with Artoria Pendragon from Fate Stay Night. Given Saber's one of my certified favorites, it's no surprise Ais is too. Seriously, I don't know if there's gonna be a canon ship, but if there is, Ais and Belle deserve a top spot. I'll also accept a harem route, but come on! Oh, and it hasn't come up in the anime story yet, but according to the mobile game, Ais is the reincarnation of Ariadne, former queen of Lykiros. It appears plenty of these adventurers are some form of reincarnated hero of the past. Also part of the Loki Familia are Tiona and Tione Hiryute, a pair of Amazoness sisters. They were born to the nation of Telskiura under the Kali Familia. That whole group is full of babes that haven't made their anime debut. They're also cutthroat, embracing a survival of the fittest mentality. The sisters never knew their parents, and from the beginning, they only had each other. Not even their fellow Amazons were allies, in the sense that they had to fight each other in duels to the death. Tione, the older sister, was forced into an anonymous bout on her 5th birthday. Not knowing her opponent, she claimed victory, only to discover she had killed Seldas, an Amazon she thought of as a motherly figure. Both Tione and Tiona reached level 2 that day, only to resent their way of life. Even so, they continued studying under another pair of babes, Argana and Bache Khalif. To prevent Tione from reliving her trauma, Tiona took up the task of slaying their fellow roommates. It wasn't that Tiona lacked empathy for them, she loved them just as much. Still, she endured pain for her sister's sake, deciding to stay positive even in hardship. Her ability to do so stemmed from her love of hero stories. Her favorite hero, Argonaut, was said to always smile no matter the situation. In turn, Tiona sought to embody his heroic philosophy. Sounds a lot like another well-known hero. Dare I say she goes plus ultra? Around the age of 7, the sisters requested and got permission to venture off on their own. Over the span of 5 years, Tione and Tiona traveled the land, vowing to join any familia who could best them in combat. They grew ridiculously strong during this time, only to lose to Loki's top adventurers, Finn and Gareth. True to their word, they remain part of the Loki Familia to this day. Ever since, Tione has been hopelessly in love with Finn, pining for him even though he's not particularly receptive to her feelings. That doesn't stop her from trying to become his ideal woman. For his sake, she behaves more gentle and polite, but when angered, her more volatile side bleeds through. While the sisters are equal in terms of combat ability, Tiona is noticeably jealous of Tione's well-endowed physique. Of course, I don't think any less of her, but unfortunately I can't tell her that because she's not real. Tiona is energetic and compassionate, easily breaking the ice in any social interaction. She especially gets along with Belle, sharing his love of hero stories. In battle, she wields a pair of combining blades called Urga, but is just as formidable with her bare hands. Tiona's Berserk skill raises her power when taking damage, meaning that wounds ironically make her stronger. To that end, she puts herself and her gear through the ringer, having replaced Urga 3 separate times, which has left her in substantial debt. In a previous life, she was known as Olna Garof, one of the world's 3 great poets. Tione's approach to battle is similar, with some noteworthy differences. Among her various weapons, Zolas is a pair of kukri knives that are easy to reproduce. If one should break, she already has replacements. Her magic spell, List Eorum, can occasionally seal her enemies. Tione's berserk skill is even more potent than her sister's, enhancing her power based on how angry she gets. When she goes into an enraged state, Finn proves to be the only person capable of calming her down. In a previous life, she used to be Elmina Garov, a hero better known as El Shana. Now that Tiona and Tione have found a new home with the Loki Familia, they are eager to protect it from Kali and her group. This has them fighting against their former mentors. It's great knowing they can break free of their previous Familia's cruelty. I think I prefer Tiona for her spunk, but overall, I consider both sisters certified favorites. I'm a total sucker for the Amazon aesthetic and how they kick ass while looking great. At the top of Loki's Familia are 3 elite adventurers. There's Finn, Gareth, and the High Elf Riveria Ljos Alf, the Familia's vice captain. She's considered elven royalty, born to Larfel Ljos Alf in their royal forest. Ever since childhood, Riveria had a strong curiosity of the outside world that conflicted with her father's will. Tension between them stewed for 71 years until Riveria finally decided to leave the forest and explore. Along with her personal chamberlain, Eina, she hoped to expand her horizons. It was a dangerous undertaking, and in order to protect Eina, she chose to seek Loki's help. Despite initially not liking Loki, she joined the Familia for the power to keep her cherished friend safe. As a descendant of elven royalty, Riveria saw herself superior to other races, creating friction between her, Finn, and the dwarf Gareth. Luckily, years of adventure helped alleviate that prejudice, and she now maintains a strong bond with her fellow officers. While Riveria leveled up at a steady pace, it wasn't fast enough to compensate for Eina's weak constitution. Eventually, the two parted ways so Eina could rest. After moving to Orario, Riveria established herself as a renowned mage, making her Familia proud. This included supporting Zeus and Hera against the monstrous behemoth. Specifically, Riveria excels at a skill called Chant Connection, which lets her adjust the strength and duration of her spells. By harnessing a total of 9 unique magics, others recognize her as Nine Hell, the world's most powerful mage. As vice captain, she takes charge of instructing Loki's other children. This included mentoring Ais from a young age. In that regard, she is a serious and strict teacher who has her students endure long lessons without distraction. At the same time, though, she is caring and considerate, to the point where Loki nicknames her Mama. No matter how true, though, you'd better not treat her like an old woman, or there'll be hell to pay. Riveria may excel at keeping calm in the heat of battle, but she's not to be trifled with when angered. That said, the times when she breaks her stoic demeanor are few and far between. Not even booze can shake her, considering she refuses to drink it. You'll be lucky to catch her laughing, and if you do, it'll be quite jarring. Beyond her tranquil demeanor, though, Riveria still clings to her youthful excitement for adventure. She yearns to keep discovering the world, even after it's time to pass the torch to a new generation. To ultimately serve as Riviera's successor, the Loki Familia trains Lefiya Viridis, a self-conscious elf with an obvious crush on Ais. Before joining Loki's ranks, she was an honor student at the School District, a maritime academic institute. There's plenty of potential to be found in her, but it's overshadowed by her clumsiness and tendency to daydream. She wants to stand alongside Ais as an equal, but initially lacks the confidence to do so. Most of the time, Lefiya indulges in romantic fantasies about Ais, getting possessive of her idol. This makes Belle her rival for Ais' attention, but while she and Ais have a solid rapport, I don't think we'll be seeing any sparks between them. Lefiya does, however, make great strides in her magic. As the reincarnation of Fina, Argonaut's brother, she has the unique ability Elf Ring, granting her knowledge of every magic used by elves. Her greatest strength comes from concurrent chanting, through which she prepares spells while moving around and fighting. It's rather dangerous, like carrying around a bomb while multitasking. As such, there's a chance her spells fail to cast properly, or worse, go out of control. Lefiya learns a lot from her teammates, but most of her confidence stems from her friendship with Filvis, a magic swordswoman she admires. Aspiring to be like Filvis, someone she sees as more beautiful and talented, Lefiya begins training in her own swordplay, hoping to use it as part of the vanguard in addition to ranged spellcasting. She's a fine addition to the Loki Familia, even if her feelings for Ais are never reciprocated. There are 3 less relevant members of Loki's Familia who occasionally show up in the background. Let's start with Anakiri Autumn, or Aki. As you might expect, she's a cat girl, joining up at the same time as her partner Raoul. Elfie Colette is a fire mage who came to Arario to study at the school district, only to instead join Loki. Then there's Line Arsh, a bespectacled adventurer who winds up getting killed in the light novel. This event isn't shown in the anime, with her mysteriously absent for later seasons. That said, she's apparently still alive in the mobile game, which follows a different timeline. Moving on from Loki, our next faction is the Take Mikazuchi Familia, which is obviously based on Japanese mythology. Within Danmachi, it's known as the Far East. Like many adventurers, Mikoto Yamato lost her parents at a young age and was raised by her familia instead. Take Mikazuchi had an orphanage at their shrine, where Mikoto and other children grew up together. There, she became an impressive cook who could make do with limited supplies. Mikoto and some friends would occasionally visit another waifu, Sanjo no Haruhime, and help her sneak out of her mansion to play at night. This got them in trouble, with Haruhime's dad being pissed at the shrine. As she got older, Mikoto trained under Take Mikazuchi, developing various martial arts, primarily sword arts. Wanting to give back to the shrine that raised her, she joins her familia when they move to Arario to earn money. While she knows ninjutsu, stealth really isn't her forte, mainly because she despises deception. Stealth and sneak attacks don't suit her sense of honor. For instance, she feels ashamed for prioritizing her familia's safety by leading a group of pursuing monsters to a different party. Mikoto's also incredibly humble, downplaying her hard work and getting embarrassed by praise. I'll praise her anyway, though. Like Belle, she is painfully honest and struggles lying. In battle, she specializes in swordplay, but can also wield axes, bows, and throwing weapons. While she avoids stealth when possible, she's more than willing to embrace supportive magic, like her Futsu no Mitama, a gravity spell that traps foes in a sword-clad dome and crushes them. Her skills, Yata no Kuro Garasu and Yata no Shiro Garasu, allow her to sense both allies and enemies from far away. Eventually, Mikoto chooses to convert to Hestia's Familia to assist Belle in a war game against the Apollo Familia. She plans to return to Take Mikazuchi, but has to wait at least a year before switching back. This pays off, as winning the war game lets Hestia take over Apollo's massive mansion, including its luxurious bath facility. The skill that lets her sense her own familia also comes in clutch when detecting springs in the dungeon. Don't get me wrong, a nice bath is wonderful, but Mikoto takes it to a new level. It's like part of her personality. You can't just jump in either. She's got a whole preparatory ritual before taking a dip. It's pretty cringe, but I'll put up with it for the hot springs hijinks that ensue. Overall, Mikoto's a wonderful ally to have around, and her greatest flaw comes from how her loyalty can reach self-destructive heights. To me, that just means that so long as you care for her, she'll care for you. Another girl of Take Mikazuchi's Familia is Chigusa Hitachi, a shy young girl who could give Bartholomew Roberts a heart attack. Her design references the mythical bird Jian, born with one wing and one eye. To survive, Jian travel in pairs, representing devoted couples. This isn't to say she's actually blind in one eye, but it does explain her specific hairstyle. Fitting the folklore she's based on, Chigusa is madly in love with her childhood friend and teammate Kashima Oka, who in turn protects her in combat. This allows her to remain at the rear, firing off arrows as a ranged supporter. Her talent with a bow actually outclasses Mikoto's, which is impressive. Her skill, Abnormal Resistance, proves invaluable for dungeon crawling, as it negates abnormal status effects, such as poisons. In general, Chigusa plays a less significant role in the story, but that hasn't stopped her from amassing a solid fanbase. There's a reason she's featured in the Hot Springs OVA episode. The last waifu from Takemi Kazuchi I want to mention is Asuka. She barely makes an appearance in the anime, but she's cute and I like her outfit. Moving on, our next faction isn't a familia per se, but rather an ensemble of waitresses. Mia Grand runs a pub called the Hostess of Fertility. Her height may deceive you, but Mia's actually a dwarf who grew up in a mining town ravaged by poverty. Food was a scarcity there, and so Mia originally ran a pub in her hometown. On a trip to gather ingredients, she came across the goddess Freya crying among a field of flowers. Embarrassed, Freya tried to charm Mia into forgetting, only for Mia to punch her in the face instead. Rather than see it as heresy, Freya was happy to find someone who didn't immediately fall for her. Wanting to recruit Mia, the goddess brought salvation to her mining town. For a time then, Mia served as captain of the Freya Familia, even raising her own successor, Otar. Eventually, though, Mia yearned to open another pub, seeing it as her way of bringing joy to the people of Orario. Freya allows this in exchange for the chance to work there as a waitress. We'll come back to that later. Most of Mia's employees are girls she rescued, and she treats them as her daughters. In turn, they call her Mama Mia. She's compassionate, but only beneath a layer of strict stoicism. Mia doesn't tolerate her staff slacking off on the job, and she hates when customers disrespect her cooking by getting into petty fights. At the Hostess of Fertility, she treats gods and mortals equally, in that she'll kick either's ass if need be. Ironically, despite being Freya's familia child, Mia views her as the daughter and will easily return to battle for her sake. Working at the pub is Chloe Rollo, a Kudo Neko, or Black Cat, who used to be an assassin for the Njord Familia. She's a crafty feline with a love for gambling. She was raised as a killer from childhood, and even though she only targeted people she deemed malicious, she nonetheless felt ashamed of her past. Her job as a waitress gives her the opportunity to lead a normal life, though she'll still use her stealth techniques to keep her friends safe from harm. I appreciate how she's able to take ownership of her skills and direct them toward a better future. Then we have Loup Noir Faust, a former bounty hunter of the Demeter Familia. She took up fighting to survive on the streets, but after almost dying in a battle against first-class adventurers, she now works a more peaceful career. Still, I love when she hops back into the ring, as fist fighters are totally my type. Loup Noir and Chloe are very similar, but if I had to pick, I'd say I prefer Loup Noir. Anya Fromel and her brother Alan became strays when their parents died. They struggled for 2 years before Freya found and brought them into her familia. However, it wasn't really the kind of gesture you'd expect. Members of the Freya Familia undergo intense training, more or less fighting to the death on a daily basis. They engaged in genuine, brutal combat, only to be healed up for another day's worth of carnage. To keep Anya away from this brutal process, Alan offered himself up, pledging to fight hard enough for the both of them. He's too stubborn to admit how much he cares for her, and thus, Anya feels abandoned. She works for Mia, not knowing of her brother's sacrifice. While she no longer actively fights, she does retain the skills she originally built up in case they're needed later. This includes her magic, Remiste Felis, through which she fiercely roars to weaken everyone in earshot. By not opening up about his feelings, Alan brings his sister unnecessary pain, so I'm glad when she finally learns the truth. The Hostess of Fertility even has its own first-rank adventurer, Ryuu Lion, an elven sword mage with a traumatic past under the Astrea Familia. In the Ryuu Milua forest, her family was in charge of caring for a sacred tree. It was a noble task, yet their noble attitude grew out of hand. Ryuu hated how her fellow elves treated other races as inferior. Inversely, this led her to think that elves, who are normally seen as beautiful, are in fact the ugliest race. Disgusted by this, she left the forest for Orario, becoming an adventurer named Gale. Never revealing her full name, Ryuu joined the Astrea family and leveled up at an astonishing rate. Much of this came from teamwork, as her familia was highly skilled and welcoming. Ryuu came to love them dearly, making it all the worse when the Rudra Familia caught them in a trap within the dungeon. As a defensive measure, the dungeon is capable of spawning the Juggernaut, a horrifying monster who can reflect magic and wipe out parties in mere seconds. Rudra's plot conjured the Juggernaut, and it immediately started tearing everyone present to pieces. Ryuu's Familia decided to sacrifice themselves so that she could live, and sure enough, she became their only survivor. Despicably, Jura, one of the orchestrators of this disaster, also escaped alive. Devastated by the loss of her allies, Ryuu could think of nothing but revenge, and shamefully requested to leave the city. She didn't want Astrea to see what would come next. Going solo, Ryuu tracked down and assassinated those associated with the attack, and a lack of vindication led to her garnering an 80 million Valis bounty. She continued to hunt down enemies until collapsing in the street from injury. Ryuu would have died there, if not for Syr of the Hostess of Fertility. Syr brought Ryuu back to the pub, and Mamma Mia nursed her to recovery. In gratitude, Ryuu works there as a waitress, hoping to keep the past behind her. She prefers this peaceful life, but still keeps an ear out for any nefarious dungeon schemes. Along the way, she meets Bell and, over time, falls for his selfless heroism. To that end, Ryuu will return to the dungeon if it means keeping him safe. While she can fight with her wooden sword, Alf's Justitia, her primary strength comes from magic. Via luminous wind, she can launch orbs of green stardust that explode on impact. She's also adept at healing, with a spell called Noah Heal that's fueled by her mental fortitude and stamina. Ryuu may have found a family at the pub, but that doesn't stop her from playing the Dark Knight. She'll assassinate other adventurers tied to her past, even if it brands her a fugitive. Her love for Bell grows when he chooses to trust her against the odds. Together, they unearth corruption and take on the Juggernaut when it reveals itself again. Trapped in the lower levels, the two barely scrape by, remaining hopeful even as death seems imminent. Ryuu's elven heritage has her weary of physical intimacy. However, she trusts Bell enough to expose herself and embrace him for warmth. Like her Familia before her, she tries to sacrifice herself so he can escape, but luckily, he's too stubborn to abandon her. They finally make it to the surface, leaving Ryuu too embarrassed to confess her feelings. Ready to move forward, she takes the chance to visit Astrea and update her status. By confronting her past, she gains a magic called Astrea Record, allowing her to inherit the talents of her fallen comrades. She can't replicate them perfectly, but even a fraction of their combined strength is enough to make her a one-woman army. Predominantly, she utilizes her friend Elise's fire magic, mixed with sword techniques from Kaguya. It's as though they're fighting alongside her from beyond the grave. Ryuu wants to make their sacrifice worthwhile and find the courage to confess to Bell. He and Ais share an unspoken connection, but he and Ryuu build their bond through constant teamwork. Whether or not she can turn her ally into a lover remains to be seen, but if she succeeds, I certainly won't complain. I'll admit that at first, Ryuu wasn't too outstanding for me, but with further development and screen time, she's grown into another certified favorite. For those who do care about Memoria Freeze, it reveals that Ryuu's a reincarnation of Ryulu, another of the three great poets. The goddess Astrea is still alive, even though Juggernaut wiped out most of her Familia. She's since started to rebuild, but nothing can replace that first generation of heroes. In all, it consisted of Elise Level, Gojo no Kaguya, Lyria, Neze Ranket, Iska Bra, Maryu Rig, Noin Unik, Asta Nox, Rihanna Lietz, and Kelty Sroa. Hopefully I didn't butcher those names. Elise was their brave captain, whose optimism remained till her last breath. In her search for justice, she found meaning in dying to save her allies. Kaguya, the vice captain, belonged to Far East nobility and used to be an imperial soldier. As an adventurer, she put her sword skills to use in saving the masses. Lyra was their palom strategist, whose magic conjured explosives. Even when blinded by searing flames, she continued to fight without hesitation. Neze was this super hot werewolf who was sadly caught by surprise and one-shotted. Iska at least had a chance to retaliate, but could do nothing as Juggernaut tore her limbs off and devoured her. The gentle mage Mariu didn't fare any better, caught in the beast's sharp maw. Noin's shield didn't stand a chance, and Rihanna's fire was reflected back upon her in a gruesome display. Poor Kelty was electrocuted, and I'm not even sure how Asta died. Regardless, all these valiant and beautiful waifu were cut down in their prime. I'm so glad their legacy lives on with Ryuu, as none of them deserved such a nightmarish end. Our next waifu is part of the complicated situation. Freya is a Norse goddess of beauty, one who is cherished by all, yet never fully understood. She deals with passion and romance on a daily basis, yet feels her divine responsibilities prevent her from acting on her true feelings. In the past, she made a deal with Hera, promising to save the world. Upon failing this task, she agreed to descend from heaven and remain in Orario. This meant sealing away her strongest divine abilities. Even without them, Freya manages the strongest familia in the world, raising her children through a harsh system of constant warfare. Nonetheless, her followers adore her, all wishing to be someone special in her life. Freya yearned to escape from her obligations, and found an opportunity when encountering an orphan girl on the street. This child, Syr, loathed her own existence, and desperately wished to be more like Freya. Taking advantage of this, Freya struck a deal with Syr, one that would cater to both their interests. Freya took over Syr's name and identity, able to use her as an alter ego among mortal men. In return, Syr would go by the name Hern and gain an ability called Vana Saith, through which she could become Freya and even use her abilities. Effectively, both of them were able to transform into each other, with Syr being an alias that they mutually share. Freya used her alter ego to live like a normal girl working for Mia at the Hostess of Fertility pub. At times, Hern would fill in for the goddess, and in doing so, could even inherit Freya's emotions. Initially, Freya treated Syr as an experiment of roleplay, acting as a kind and compassionate girl. Over time, however, she began to realize this act was actually just her vulnerable side, which she normally suppressed. In this state, she met Bel and immediately fell for his gentle sincerity. As a goddess, Freya is flirtatious and possessive. She loves to gather talented adventurers and gain their servitude. Her discerning eye can sense the brilliance of a person's soul, and when she finds someone she wants, she can charm them to her side, whether they be gods, mortals, or monsters. Her authority is strong enough that she can essentially outcharm other goddesses. When backed into a corner, she can expand her charm to the entire city, brainwashing Orario's citizens. Among all her beloved adventurers, though, Bel is special. Confident that she can claim him at any time, she instead watches him from her room in Babel Tower. Most of her interactions with Bel come via her Syr persona, which yearns to win over Bel's heart. To that end, Freya lets her Syr alias confess to and date Bel, but while he's trained to be an utmost gentleman, he admits he has feelings for another girl. This rejection breaks Freya's heart, and she abandons her identity as Syr to claim Bel through force. The one person she wants most resists her, and that's part of why she wants him so dearly. Thus, when her obsession reaches its peak, she decides to charm all of Orario into believing a false timeline, one in which Bel has always been a part of her familia. In other words, she gaslights Bel, hoping he'll forget about Hestia and join her of his own volition. Hern suffers from this arrangement. While she wants to serve Freya loyally as her attendant, Vana Saith reveals all of Freya's emotions. Fanatical about the goddess, Hern blames Bel for her suffering and hopes to kill him. Even so, she can't bring herself to do it because Freya's affection for him bleeds into her. Nevertheless, Hern resolves to oppose Freya, believing it to be in their best interest. Trying to force Bel's love becomes too painful, so Hern uses Syr to voice Freya's desire to be saved. In the end, Freya's scheme is exposed and undone. As punishment for abusing her authority, she is stripped of her home and familia, and yet Mia and her co-workers at the pub welcome her back, so long as she stops hiding her true feelings. Freya is happy to cast herself aside as a goddess and continue living on as Syr. By extension, Hern finds peace in Freya's newfound happiness. It's a total mess, but also a compelling one. Technically, there are only 2 people involved in this setup, but since Freya, Syr, and Hearn all have their own appeal, I'll be treating them as 3 distinct waifu. Freya's like super omega hot, and while I think she's a fantastic character, I have other favorites in this series. Before getting dismantled, the Freya Familia hosts a handful of great waifu. Chief among them is Heith Velvet, leader of the Familia's healers. It's her job to resurrect and heal Freya's soldiers after they kill each other in training. Unlike other adventurers who can only spar with each other, the Folkvanger arena facilitates constant, genuine danger. Heith originally participated as a fighter, only to learn she was better suited to healing duty. This is an exhausting endeavor, but she endures out of loyalty to her goddess, condemning anyone who would betray her. Amazingly, she and her squad of healers can survive having their flesh and clothes incinerated. As a result, they all continue fighting in their skivvies and exposed underboob. It's shameless, but I love it. I appreciate how they prioritize their duty over their pride. Another of Freya's children is Remilia, a mage who's assigned to guard Bell while he's being gaslit. She's cute, but hardly shows up in the anime. Next up, we have Hephaestus, the divine blacksmith. She's not a fighter directly, but she and her familia make weapons that most adventurers can only dream of using. To preserve the reputation of her craft, she refuses to forge low-tier equipment, meaning that only wealthy familia can afford to buy from her. Even as a favor to Hestia, she won't work for free, instead offering a tremendous loan. It's worth every Valis, though, as only Hephaestus is skilled enough to imbue a piece of gear with a goddess's falna. She's very beautiful, with a professional charm and calm demeanor. Unfortunately, she's insecure about her body, specifically her deformed right eye hidden behind a patch. I haven't seen it personally, but apparently, the defect is uncanny enough that it scares people away. An exception to this is her apprentice Welf, who asks to become her lover. Beyond his affection, Welf aims to make himself and his goddess proud, always eager to improve his craftsmanship. Appreciating his drive and dedication, she trusts him when he asks to convert to Hestia's Familia. She sees it as an opportunity for him to improve even further. I think she's great, and I'm really curious to see behind that eye patch. It can't be as bad as Mileena from Mortal Kombat, right? You know, behind that veil. Beyond Hephaestus herself, her familia includes the far eastern waifu Tsubaki Collbrande. She's both the familia's captain and a master smith. Compared to other waifu in this list, she's fairly old, 38 to be exact. That's not a deal breaker, but the falna she received from Hephaestus has an anti-aging effect, which keeps her looking young. Racially, she's a half-dwarf, which I guess gives her a larger build that helps with pounding iron. Tsubaki cares more about her craft than her body, expressing how her large chest is only a nuisance. Its only merit comes in luring men. She likes her men small, wanting to use Palom like Finn or the Gulliver brothers like a hug pillow in bed. In other words, she's a shotakon. Tsubaki casually brushes off perverse remarks from Loki, especially when there's a celebration with alcohol involved. Her attitude in general is very upbeat and confident. As an adventurer, she uses trips to the dungeon as a chance to test her latest creations. If needed, though, she always has her trusty first-class Naginata, Beni Shigure. Her ultimate goal is to surpass Hephaestus' work. Beyond this, she tends to stay out of people's affairs, regardless of her feelings towards them. The reason she has an eye patch is different from her goddess. Tsubaki's alias is Cyclops, one-eyed creatures who in Greek mythology were skilled blacksmiths. I'm glad it's not just her being a Chunibyo. Now we're getting to one of the best familia, not in terms of strength, but appeal. Danmachi's Ishtar is a sultry Amazon goddess with arrogant ambitions. She claims to be the most beautiful woman in the world while trying to refute Freya's superiority. To that end, she wants to dethrone Freya and take her place in Orario's hierarchy. This isn't an easy feat, and so Ishtar waits patiently, developing a plan that actually stands a chance of succeeding. In her endeavors, she is ruthless, even to her own familia. She'll use her own charm magic to manipulate others and rob them of their free will. Appropriately, Ishtar is the head honcho of Arario's pleasure district, embracing prostitution as a sacred act of fertility. She views it as a way for women to control the world by taming men's aggressive nature. There's nothing wrong with that lifestyle, at least for those who opt into it. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. For example, she aims to abuse the unique abilities of Haruhime to wage war on Freya. Even though her pawn is given a modicum of freedom, she's still holding her captive, no matter how luxuriously. Ultimately, Ishtar bites off more than she can chew, incurring Freya's wrath by trying to capture Bel. She learns firsthand how inferior she is, as a goddess anyway. Completely outmatched, she can do nothing but flail as Freya casts her away, forcing her to return to heaven. Had she kept a lower profile, I'm sure her domain would have prospered. At least the children of her familia prosper in her absence. She may not hold a candle to FGO's Ishtar, but this one's fantastic in her own right. Under Ishtar's command is a glorious harem of strong, seductive Amazon waifu. Seriously, there are countless beautiful women here, most of whom would be certified favorites with enough plot relevance. To keep things simple, though, I'll stick with girls who are at least named and play a role in the plot. Executive among the familia is Samira, a silver-haired tomboy who's down to rumble. The best of these babes is Lena Tali, a flirtatious brunette who fawns over Bel and tries to kidnap him on Ishtar's behalf. Even as a complete side character, she earns a certified favorite. Whenever I watch this arc, she tends to stand out among the crowd. This one with her hair tied back is Sheree, but unfortunately, none of these other Amazons seem to have names. Alright, it can't be all fun and games. This freaky-ass toad girl is Fern Jamil, Ishtar Familia's captain. She obviously earns this role for being an absolute unit. Not only does she serve as Ishtar's muscle, but she also handles dirty work like interrogating prisoners. In her private dungeon, she drugs victims, breaking their minds and bodies until she's bored. Humorously, she tries to seduce Otar, and is struck with righteous fury for even thinking to compare herself to Freya. As I said before, Ishtar planned to sacrifice Sanjo no Haruhime to wage war on Freya. Haruhime is a renard, part of a demi-human race that shares fox traits. Among beast-human hybrids, renards tend to possess rare magic. Under her strict father, she grew up living an isolated life as a dignified noble. She considered her home a cage, trapping her from the outside world. Without any friends to play with, she took to reading books, namely fairy tales, where heroes saved damsels in distress. Haruhime saw herself in those damsels, yearning for a hero to rescue her. For a time, Mikoto and others from the Take Mikazuchi familia snuck her out at night, but this only made her irate father double down on security. Haruhime is a gentle, polite, and timid girl who, aside from sneaking out to play, would always follow the rules. Even so, her father never trusted her, and when she was framed for eating a sacred offering, he disowned her. After a guest offered to take her away, she was left stranded in the wild from a monster attack. Bandits captured her and sold her off to a brothel in Orario, where Ishtar discovered and bought her out. From a young age, she served as one of Ishtar's prostitutes, hidden away in the pleasure district. In a sense, this was no different from her isolation at home, still wishing for a hero to come save her. Now, I say she's a prostitute, but she has a habit of passing out at the sight of naked men. She doesn't know it, but she's still a virgin. Instead of providing carnal pleasure, Ishtar keeps Haruhime around for her unique magic ability, Uchide no Kozuchi, which can boost the level of adventurers. It's extremely useful, as gaining a single level can often take years. Hoping to exploit this magic, Ishtar aimed to sacrifice Haruhime to the Killing Stone, a Renard artifact containing an entrapped soul. Mikoto and Chigusa tried to prevent this, but ultimately, it is Bel who comes to her rescue, just like in her fairy tales. With Ishtar's defeat, Haruhime is taken in by Hestia's Familia, where she chooses to work as a maid. For her own protection, the Familia hides the truth of her magic, knowing that others would seek to abduct her for it. That said, she does use her power to support Bel and his party in the dungeon, often being the main reason they survive against unprecedented danger. Later on, she gains access to a grimoire that teaches her Kokonoe, an enchantment spell granting her 9 glowing tails. They extend her Uchide no Kozuchi to multiple recipients. At the moment, she can only manifest up to 6 of these tails before it exhausts her, but even then, it's a game changer. Haruhime is delighted to support her allies, finally free of her loneliness. Thanks to her solitude, she gets excited by mundane things we take for granted. It's adorable seeing her experience more and more of the world. One of the most kick-ass fighters in Danmachi is the bombshell Aisha Belka. Her alias, Antian Era, refers to various Greek women, one of whom was an Amazon warrior. In Danmachi's world, Aisha was born in the Chios Desert, a southeastern region where slave trading was commonplace. Of her own accord, she traveled to Orario and joined the Ishtar Familia. Rising in the ranks, Aisha became an executive member in charge of the Berbera, Ishtar's elite force of Amazons. While not official, she essentially served as the Familia's vice captain. Aisha is an experienced commander with a talent in hand-to-hand combat. Her fighting style is modeled around dance, combining fluid movements and sweeping kicks. Her main weapon is a podao, a type of curved Chinese broadsword. To enhance her attacks, she casts Hell Kaios, a magic that lets her blade unleash a red shockwave, cutting distant foes like a shark fin through water. In addition to fighting, Aisha fulfills her duty as a prostitute, primarily so she can breed with strong men. The bar is set high, as she covets men who are stronger than she is. As the leader of the Berbera, she is both a reliable strategist and an older sister of sorts. When Aisha first met Haruhime, she knew of Ishtar's plan to sacrifice her. She intended to keep her distance, pitying the poor girl, but soon found herself wanting to save her. In defiance of Ishtar's will, Aisha shattered the first killing stone, forcing Ishtar to procure another. As punishment, Fern cruelly beat her, and to prevent further insubordination, Ishtar used her charm to rob Aisha of her free will. To an extent, Aisha was still able to protect Haruhime, but only as a precious resource for Ishtar's war on the goddess Freya. This left her in a state of conflict, fighting Bel and Haruhime's rescuers while hoping for their success. With Ishtar's defeat, Aisha regained her freedom, choosing to join the Hermes Familia instead. Officially, she's listed as part of the Plutus Familia, but that's merely a strategic fabrication. Even though the rest of the Berbera have gone their separate ways, Aisha still keeps in contact with them. Her loyalty to Haruhime also remains, trusting that Bel will take care of her. That said, Aisha wanted to sleep with Bel when they first met, and feels she's lost the opportunity. She tries to seduce him, offering to aid him in the dungeon in exchange for a night of passion. Then, completely separate from this, she hopes that Bel will marry Haruhime. Clearly, she's a fan of open marriages, with Bel being just one of several men she approaches. In contrast, she finds the approach elves take to love to be far too boring and restrictive. Luckily, Aisha still adventures with Bel for different reasons. Part of this is to see Haruhime grow into a more independent, strong-willed woman. Aisha's another of my certified favorites. Her attitude and design are top-notch. She may be a wild card, but I'd welcome her into my party any day. Too bad she only swings one way, as far as I'm aware. The Hermes Familia is dedicated to exploring the dungeon for profit. Its captain is Asfi Al Andromeda, a refined human who loyally serves Hermes in spite of his mischief and perversion. This is because he, in a sense, rescued her from living as the princess of an island nation. She prefers the life of an adventurer, using the opportunity to gather intelligence and create items under the nickname Perseus. Asfi is Hermes' right-hand woman, his accomplice, if you will. While Hermes is a cunning and effective leader, she often disapproves of his manipulative approach to things. He's a meticulous and thorough strategist, but this also applies to his lechery. he'll take every opportunity to peek at women bathing, encouraging others to join him in his antics. Asfi takes it upon herself to clobber him in these situations. To that end, she's a diligent worker who's exasperated handling her boss's quirks. I'd say she's the one wearing the pants in their relationship, but Hermes makes sure to have the last laugh. Unlike other adventurers, Asfi is often cool and calculated. She won't charge into a fight she knows will be too dangerous. To stay out of trouble, she hides her presence with a self-made helmet called Hades' Head. She also keeps her teammates on track, prioritizing her missions above all else. Her item crafting is the product of her mystery skill. These creations range from potions to equipment like her talaria, a pair of winged sandals that let her fly. She once wanted to soar the skies, and thanks to her ingenuity, she's found a way to do so. Hermes has great expectations for Bel and his growth as a hero. By extension, Asfi winds up playing a role in Bel's affairs, whether that be helping him in combat or orchestrating events from backstage. Sometimes, this means arranging challenges for Bel to overcome, but ultimately she agrees it's for the best in the long run. In my opinion, her appeal comes from the moments she loses composure. Her prim and proper exterior gives way to more sentimental or embarrassing expressions. Contrary to what you might think, Hermes' Familia doesn't have that many waifu. One of them, however, is Lulune Louis. She's a Kianthrope, a dog-like demi-human who specializes in thievery. Appropriately, she loves money, and sometimes the pursuit of wealth will outshine her better judgment. She's supposed to be able to keep the Familia's secrets, but often fails to keep her mouth shut. This may stem from how Lulune doesn't really approve of her Familia's methods, nor the types of jobs she gets saddled with. Even so, she's proven herself a valuable team member with a talent for mapping. Her travels have allowed her to map out Aurario's dungeon, as well as other regions beyond the city. Not to call her weak, but she's definitely not the series' best fighter, so it's nice she has other skills to fall back on for survival. That said, when she does fight, her style is acrobatic, implementing guerrilla tactics with a knife. Another Hermes waifu is Meryl Tyr, an adorable Palom mage who's apparently the reincarnation of a famous knight of Fianna. She doesn't do much in the anime, though. This applies even more to Lori Urswal, an elven knight who barely makes an appearance. Before they descended from heaven, Hestia and Artemis used to be friends, fellow virgin goddesses. It's been a while since then, during which a terrifying monster, Antares, wipes out Artemis's entire familia and then devours her to take control of her divine powers. This includes access to her most powerful magic, Arcanum, which manifests as a secondary moon that can fire down arrows from the heavens. To ultimately slay the beast and prevent its rampage, Artemis releases a fragment of herself that seeks help in Aurario. During the Holy Moon Festival, she has Hermes hold a contest to see who can remove her arrow, which is so large a mortal can wield it like a spear. Of the people who try and pull her arrow from a crystal, she chooses Bel as her Orion, a pure soul who can finally slay Antares. Artemis needs someone pure because killing Antares means killing her real body as well, as it's her power that now sustains the beast. Thus, Artemis journeys with Bel and Hestia across the land, doing her best to postpone revealing the truth. As you'd expect, they grow closer, making it all the more shocking when Bel realizes what he's been asked to do. As traumatic as this is, Bel has to understand that killing her is a form of salvation, and with her god-killing arrow, he vanquishes both Antares and Artemis. What does it mean to be a hero? Is it to prevent death? Perhaps sometimes it's freeing someone from their misery. Sometimes it means sacrificing the few for the needs of the many. Bel needs to confront this dilemma, and Artemis helps him overcome the odds without shattering his resolve. Also, Artemis reminds me of Donna from Ys 8, which is never a bad thing. Brigid is a former goddess who died in order to save Calm, a member of her familia. For a god, death means being sent back to heaven, and doing so left Calm to his solitude. Even after her demise, Calm loved Brigid and regrets having been unable to save her. Depression led him to wander aimlessly, eventually finding a village that welcomed him. Finally choosing to value the life Brigid protected, he settled down and raised plenty of orphan children. Meeting Hestia reminds Calm of his beloved goddess, granting him solace as he passes from old age. Calm's story helps Bel realize his own desire to protect Hestia, inspiring him to live without regret. One of the girls Calm adopted cares for him on his deathbed, remaining by his side to the end. I don't think she has a name, but I thought I'd at least mention her. Now we've got a few one-off waifu to mention. Naaza Erisuis is another Kianthrope and captain of the Mia Familia. She lived in Orario for a long time, taking 6 years to become a level 2 adventurer. Her slow trajectory was brought to a sudden stop when monsters nearly killed her in the dungeon. In the ordeal, her arms and legs were devoured. Fortunately, Mia is a god of healing and was able to restore all but her right arm. In its place, Mia commissioned Argitlam, a silver prosthetic imbued with gems. It was so expensive that it cast their familia into debt, and Naaza continues to struggle with the guilt from this. Her life as an adventurer is effectively over because the mere sight of monsters drives her to panic. To compensate, she contributes as a pharmacist, creating potions that rival Mia's. This is helpful, since Mia is rather loose with his funds, giving away his own potions for free. While she no longer explores the dungeon, Naaza can still fight against other adventurers, helping Bel and Hestia on occasion. She's an expert marksman with a bow, and her magic, Darb Deal, can curse targets by unleashing black particles. It's a manifestation of her trauma and decline, which lowers the stats of those shrouded in her darkness. If you haven't noticed, most of Naaza's design was informed by Nuada from Irish mythology. I suppose a life of poverty isn't especially bad, especially with how much Mia and Naaza clearly love each other. Fortunately though, they are able to improve their finances, with some help. Originally, Daphne Lauros and Cassandra Llion were executives of the Apollo Familia. After their shameful defeat in the war games against Hestia, they joined up with the Mia Familia and now aid its recovery. Daphne is a frank, brutally honest, and efficient adventurer. She hates wasting time, and always acts with a sense of duty and purpose. She was forced into the Apollo Familia, and as such, she has mixed feelings toward him. Her protective magic, Raumere, reminds her of the creep, making her reluctant to use it. Still, when in genuine danger, she can bunker down and endure assault through the skill Laurus Wreath. It mutates her skin, making it as tough as a tree at the cost of mobility. It's the exact opposite strategy she normally implements, wherein her speed allows her to escape when enemies chase her. Daphne's design is based on the Daphne from Greek mythology, a naiad who fled from Apollo and escaped by turning into a laurel tree. In Danmachi, she's developed into her own character, who takes to battle as a valiant warrior and keen strategist. Daphne's disdain toward Apollo, at the very least, came from the same circumstances that let her meet her best friend, Cassandra. In contrast to Daphne's bluntness, Cassandra is extremely timid and shy, not wanting to upset people. This conflicts with her prophetic clairvoyance. As a seer, Cassandra's dreams offer visions of the future, often as dangerous premonitions she must avoid. Said visions can be vague and difficult to interpret, but have ultimately allowed her to save lives, including her own. That said, her lack of confidence makes it hard for others to believe her, and Daphne is always trying to make her more assertive, especially when her dreams appear to be coming true. Even so, she hates being the bearer of bad news. Her non-confrontational attitude is at least compatible with her role as a mage, specifically an expert healer. Cassandra's soul light magic can heal allies within a large area. Originally, Apollo gifted her a staff for magic, but she refuses to use it. Instead, she took out a loan to buy her holy crystal rod, choosing to work off over 1,000,000 Valis rather than rely on a sketchy god. As a sign of good fortune, Cassandra also carries around a self-made rabbit charm, and is pleased when Bel earns the nickname Rabbitfoot. One of the first gods to descend from heaven was Oranos. he mostly takes a passive role in the story, choosing to assist adventurers by founding the Guild, an organization that provides guidance to Familia and their children. Belle's advisor and guild receptionist is Eina, a sweet half-elf who wants to make Belle's dream a reality. She left her hometown at a young age to attend the school district, eventually graduating at the age of 14 with a liberal arts degree. A job working for the guild gave her enough money so that she could reimburse her parents for their support. She first approached the job with optimism, only to realize it's rather soul-crushing. After dealing with what's essentially thankless customer service, it's no wonder that Belle is her favorite client. Eina goes beyond the call of duty for his sake, joining him on her day off to shop for new equipment. Thanks to her education and exceptional intellect, Eina's able to read the hieroglyphs of sacred texts. In the past, one of her previous clients, Maurice Hackard, died under her care. To prevent this from happening again, Eina focuses diligently on her job, condemning laziness and distraction. This includes matters of romance. Her lack of interest and experience have her politely rejecting any potential suitors. Of course, Belle is the exception. Around him, she's easily embarrassed, taking to love like a timid schoolgirl. She values his gentlemanly nature and is quick to scold him for acting out of line, even when he's completely innocent. This makes Eina the type to slap or demonize dudes for peeping on girls, never stopping to consider it may be an accident. Beyond a bit of slapstick comedy, though, Eina's really a sweet girl who genuinely cares for Belle's safety. He really couldn't ask for a better guild advisor. Eina's best friend from school is Misha Flott, and she too joins the guild after graduation. She likes to tease Eina about Belle, being too curious for her own good. In turn, Eina pressures Misha into keeping up with work. I'd say they each complement each other's faults. There are also lots of guild girls in the anime who go unnamed. Strangely, this girl Sophie gets named, despite getting the least screen time. I assume they all get more focus in the novels and spin-offs. Ganesha is mainly a comedic figure in Danmachi, but his familia has some fine waifu worth mentioning. They rarely show up, but there's Shakti Varma, the familia's captain. She's a chivalrous knight who specializes in taming beasts. She's often found alongside Iltna Farna, this redhead Amazoness and former outlaw. Through hard work, she's risen to become the familia's vice-captain. Revinus Darda, or Revis, was a former elf under the Electo Familia who now works for Enyo, the scheming alias of Dionysus. Specifically, she was an abused dark elf, the only one of her kind in her home village. Being used to pain, Revis developed as a sadist who intentionally sought conflict. Her bad attitude got her into many fights, and eventually, the dungeon claimed her life. A creature called the Corrupted Spirit, a hybrid of various spirits in the dungeon, came across Revis and revived her as its bodyguard. This split her body into 7 fragments, with the one we see most being the 6th. Effectively, Revis is no more than the Corrupted Spirit's pawn, taking on missions so that it can one day leave the dungeon and see the sky. She begrudgingly accomplishes her tasks efficiently and without shame. She'll sleep with men just for the chance to murder them. She'll wear another adventurer's skin to hide herself. Annoyed by her orders, she takes out her frustration through battle, overpowering others through sheer aggression. As a creature, she's parted with her old emotions, instead fueled by a mix of rationality and fury. Through various fights against the Loki Familia, Revis develops a rivalry with Ais, which is fitting since the corrupt spirit has some sort of fixation on her. In time, this rivalry becomes Revis's sole reason for living, aside from being a trapped puppet, that is. She's a villain through and through, but I can't say I hate her. Sharing a similar fate is Filvis Challia, captain of the Dionysus Familia. She'll often be seen beside her precious god as his bodyguard, unaware of his deeper corruption. Dionysus appears to be friendly, but through his secret identity, Enyo, he wants to witness people plunge into despair. This extends to his own familia, and he plots from the shadows to make them suffer. In the past, Filvis was the only survivor of a bloody battle called the Nightmare on level 27. Adventurers fought against the organization Evilis, with Filvis being recovered in a gory state. Since then, she's tried to form other parties, but 4 times in a row, they all died except for her. Now, adventurers call her Banshee, the elf who heralds death. It's normal for elves to be selective of who touches them, but in her case, she doesn't want others touching her because she considers herself unclean. As a defense mechanism, she avoids getting close to anyone Dionysus orders her to partner with. However, Lefiya from the Loki Familia turns things around. Filvis's sincere desire to befriend Lefiya has them training together and having a great time. It's just a shame that Filvis's adoration of Dionysus is misplaced, as it spells her doom. Neither she nor Revis have their arcs told fully in the anime, so you'll have to hit up the Sword Oratorio novels to know what I'm alluding to. Demeter is the goddess of agriculture and harvest. She's extremely amicable, willing to overlook any nefarious drama between the other gods. Instead, she focuses on running a massive farm that provides Orario its food. She's a master chef, garnering much praise for her dishes. Her role in the story is quite minimal, and while that may stem from her blind optimism, it's also possible her optimism is a tool for survival. Nobody wants to piss her off, and she doesn't want to piss anyone else off. I can respect that. The Familia responsible for creating Naaza's prosthetic arm is Dion Kekt. Similar to Mia, they run a pharmacy that treats patients. Dion Kekt's captain, Airmid Teasanare, is their head doctor, and with her magic, Dia Fratel, she's considered the best healer in the world. She develops potent elixirs and antidotes of expensive quality, but at the same time, she's willing to teach others about medicine pro bono as a matter of pride. Her spell, Tiod Well, uses her body to create a spring of holy water capable of purifying all manner of wounds and infections. Looking to capitalize on this ability, Dion Kekt channels the stream from her bath to create a luxurious hot spring. It's supposed to be kept a secret, but when the Mia Familia invades, Airmid is exposed, figuratively and literally. Is this the fantasy version of gamer girl bathwater? Okay, real quick. Emma Flores is mainly a waifu from Orario Repsidia, but she does show up briefly in the anime. She's the captain of the Players Familia, making her akin to Mashu from FGO. Turns out, not all monsters in Danmachi are evil. The remaining few waifu in this list are all intelligent monsters called the Xenos. Oranos and his guild try to keep the Xenos a secret from adventurers, knowing it would be hard to convince the world that some monsters mean no harm. The best example is Vine, a mutant form of Auvre, or dragon. Normally, this sort of monster would never be humanoid, and yet she appears like a cross between a person and Lamia. Her forehead bears a gem, Auvre's tear, that if removed, will force her into a more draconic form. However, Vine doesn't want that. She's more afraid of adventurers than they are of her, so when Belle protects her from other monsters and his own party, she's both relieved and delighted. She's essentially a child, one who learns to live peacefully with Hestia's Familia. Horrified by her own claws, she's willing to trim and file them down to avoid hurting others. If anything, she'd much rather use her monster features to protect people, even if that means exposing her true identity. Sadly, Oranos was right in his worry, as an exposed Vine horrifies Orario's citizens. Belle is nearly branded a traitor, trying to secure her a route back to the dungeon. The surface world just isn't ready for Xenos, no matter how exciting her time was at Hestia's mansion. Once more, to prove herself a pacifist, Vine is willing to rip out her nails and sever her dragon wings. It's enough to overcome Ais Wallenstein's innate hatred of monsters, which is both sad and touching. Fortunately, Vine is able to rejoin her fellow Xenos in the dungeon. While she has to hide herself from other adventurers, it's nice knowing that she has a family with Belle, as well as a whole community of monsters just like her. Some of these Xenos happen to be named waifu if you're into monster girls. we've got this Lamia snake girl, Lara. There are various harpies, one of whom welcomes Bel and his friends to their cave. The shorter feathered harpy is called Fear. Among the Xenos is also a spider girl named Ranye, who desperately fights to protect her friends from being hunted. The last of these Xenos I want to cover, as well as our final waifu from Danmachi, is the mermaid Marie. She can be found in the dungeon's deadly 25th floor. It's thanks to her that Bel survives when being dragged so deep in. She herself survives by carefully observing the more powerful monsters around her. As such, she knows various routes that are safe, though they are exclusively underwater. Similar to a dolphin or a bat, she can use echolocation to essentially map out the dungeon. Marie can't fight, but she is able to invoke a charm spell on adventurers, as well as weaker monsters in her domain. More precious is her blood, which has a healing property. She's such a kind soul, never hesitating to puncture her skin to heal Bel's wounds. This includes drawing enough blood to reattach his severed arm. While Marie can never leave the dungeon, or even traverse its ground areas on foot, she takes great joy in the brief adventure she shares with Bel. Honestly, there aren't enough mermaids in anime, and she's one of the best, a certified favorite to me. I just love how friendly, playful, and devoted she is. So there you have it, a colossal 70 waifu from the Danmachi anime series. It's a shame that Season 5 struggled a bit with production at the end. Hopefully that won't be a sign of more delays to come. This show's been releasing for years now, and I'm willing to be patient so that it can finally reach its finale. Perhaps one of these days we'll get a more fun video game tie-in. The ones we do have just don't cut it. Perhaps something more like those Sword Art Online games. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my Waifu Files playlist for even more content. Be sure to let me know in the comments which anime or games you'd like to see in a future episode. Until next time, celebrate your fandom!
Thanks for watching. This channel relies on support from viewers like you.
Please help us out by dropping a like and comment. Subscribe for more videos, and be sure to enable notifications. Or hit up our Discord so you never miss out on a new upload.
Most importantly, if you can spare it, please sign up as a channel member, either through YouTube, Patreon, or Subscribestar. You can find links in the description. We've got perks like exclusive content or early access.
Until next time,
Celebrate your fandom! I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Otaku Mom, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunar Works, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Sunbro Torian, Dionysus, Caitlin P, Sogai CH, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X77, and Alistair Bernadotte. Thank you all so much.